Dude, I am having all sorts of philosophical debates as I'm speaking in my own head right now. I feel like Bubaigara. I feel like I'm splitting apart like twice and like debating with myself because I'm like, well, if they do have a point with this, because like this was. What's up, guys? Welcome to the Nissan podcast. I am one of your hosts, Josh Xell and Crim, and joined with me is, of course, Crim. How's it going, Crim?
I'm good tonight or today, whatever time zone respectively you're listening and watching from. We've got a fun one, a little darker episode.
Yes. I can't do an evil laugh.
I don't know if anybody could believe me as a villain. Maybe actually, I don't know.
But yeah, for today's episode 25, it is going to be all about villains, inspired by the most recent My Hero Academia episode, which this whole arc, at least as of late, has been all about the villains, which has been awesome. And you know, they called it one of the episode titles was My Villain Academia, which I think was really cute.
I
hey,
like that.
Look at what they did. Yeah,
I see them. I see them.
So, yeah, I don't know. So we've been getting a lot of backstory on the villains, so we kind of wanted to delve in and talk more about anime villains more as a whole. So yeah, I guess where do you want to start this off, Crim?
Well, first off, let's start this off by saying finally something is happening in My Hero Academia season 5. And then second off, so this whole like episode, really, I just want to like, I think what we really want to talk about is like, you know, how far a character can go, like, you know, before they're irredeemable, you know, there's no way back. How much are you okay with? And do you think some characters and villains that you think deserve a redemption story or a redemption arc, right? And I think the reason why this is all stemming from My Hero, for those that don't know, this recent, the last 4 or 5 episodes have just been, as you know, Xell had mentioned, all about the villains. You find out about who they are, where they came from, how they essentially became the people they became.
Yeah.
And there's some dark stuff there. There's some really dark stuff there. I didn't understand it at first because I didn't read the manga, but manga readers had told me the show gets a lot darker. And I was curious, how? Why? It doesn't seem like it could get that dark. So finally, we get to Tomura, Shigaraki, and you know, the League of Villains and every individual in that group. And I'm blown away. I'm blown away by this so far. It's finally, I just want to say this is really good. This part of My Hero Academia is finally really good. And with that, I think that's when we kind of came up with lists of other villains too, right? Like that we think deserve some discussion and, you know, maybe could deserve a redemption arc, or maybe they don't. So why don't we kind of dive into some with examples here? Do you have any right off the...
I guess...
Yeah.
So when we talk about villains, I think some of my favorite villains in any medium, not just anime, are the ones that, like, you can kind of see why, right? Because I mean, not to say that there aren't good villains that are, you know, just irredeemably evil, you know, like I think that is fine also. But I personally have a soft spot for the villains who, you know, if depending on the circumstance and the upbringing and stuff, like sometimes it feels like it could be out of your control, right? And I think that question of like kind of almost like going down to at its basis level, nature versus nurture, I think is like something that I think kind of interesting when it comes to this stuff. Cause like when we talk about My Hero specifically, like this last episode with Shigaraki, right? Like that was a tough place to be. And he found himself in an unfortunate circumstance where his power has the ability to kill people, and he was put into like this very you know, emotional state from what was happening with his family and not feeling like he was supported, and so yeah, he becomes a killer and like develops a killer instinct. Now, is Shigaraki irredeemable? I guess we can talk about that later if we want to just talk about some other interesting villains. I think I think some of my favorite villains actually came from the year 2019, which feels so long ago.
That feels like decades, dude.
I know, right? It's only been 2 years. And so I think of most recently, I think some of my favorite villains have been Askeladd from Villain Saga and Isabella from The Promised Neverland. And I remember that year too on the Crunchyroll awards, and because they have a category for like best boy, favorite villains, like all that stuff.
Yeah.
And both of them were on there because they are so dang good. And like, I think what's so great about and they're good in like kind of different ways. Like Askeladd, I know you haven't seen Vinland Saga, but basically you hate him at first because he does something right off the bat that you're like shocked by, and you're like, wow, this guy's a scumbag and I hate him. But because of the circumstance around what happens later on, the main character sort of is alongside Askeladd for a lot of his journey. And you realize that like Askeladd isn't just a scumbag. He is a scumbag with his own reasons. And slowly at the end of it all, you're like, I hate this guy, but I can kind of understand him too. Right. And so you're like, and in the end, you know, you don't root for him because, you know, in the end, he is not a good guy, but you can kind of get a sense of like, okay, I get it, but I don't like you. And I think Isabella, I think everybody loves because her backstory is also kind of on the more like tragic side. And you find out later on, like Isabella is way deeper in this than you really realized. And then she's also just such a frightening villain, right? And I think the two things that really speak out for both these villains is that they are certainly like cruel at times or whatever, but it's really just that they're so competent, right? And like I think that's one of the things that I love about these two villains. And now I guess going back to your question of are they redeemable? I think Isabella is pretty redeemable. Askeladd, again, like I said, he's a scumbag through and through, but you can kind of understand, right? He's like not a good guy.
Like I guess like with Askeladd, I don't know his backstory, right? So and I don't know what he's doing in the show, but he seems like the grimy kind of like like I can't trust him, and he's obviously a bad guy, but you know you want to like him, right? But
I think. Yeah, I kind of have you watched this old, is it Disney? I don't even remember, but Treasure Island, where it's like
it's
about
been
these like
so long since I've seen
they're
that.
like pirates, right? And they're like and they're doing, and like the captain guy is this, you know, you just imagine sleazy pirate guy who is out to build his own wealth, and in doing so does a lot of scumbag things, but then you get to know him a little more and you're like, well, I understand, you know, when you see it through his eyes and you're like, dude, you gotta take things for yourself, otherwise people will constantly take it from you. And like you're like, I can kind of see where you're coming from with that. And I think Askeladd is in that same vein where you're like, yeah, he's I would never stoop that far for it, but like you can kind of understand that through his eyes why that would be okay. But yeah, I think the general consensus is I know this is your bar for friendship, Crim, so this is specific to you, but like he does kill people, and so that I think that just barely touches the Crim bar of like redeemable. So
look, even then it could be justified. Jeez. Okay. See, I think of that a lot more along the lines of like, well, would you view Magneto as a villain?
Oh yeah, 100%. But he's got to be. But
like, is he a villain? Like he is.
I think he is a villain. I think he's a villain through and through. He's almost like Shigaraki, actually, to tie it all back to My Hero, right? Like Magneto wants a world where everyone doesn't need to hide their mutantness. They are the new normal. That's literally what this latest My Hero Academia arc is all about. Is like they want everybody, even these people with powers that people find grotesque or weird or whatever, they want to be accepted. And so like that's why from Magneto's sense you can kind of understand. But I think it's when you get to a point where it feels like, because the way I would describe Magneto, and the same thing with Shigaraki, and why I think both these characters in the end I find kind of irredeemable, is because they start to embody sort of a ends justify the means type of thing, right? And it's like, at any cost I will get this done, and if you're in my way I will stomp on you. And I think like I understand why they've gotten to that point, but it's also hard to be like, yeah, maybe it's okay to kill people to make a point.
I mean, yes. See, like they are in the firm belief of the by force, right? Like it's like not the diplomatic method. It is just I'm gonna get it done, right? And but Magneto, from like his standpoint, I think they're varying degrees. I think Magneto is somebody that could be redeemed, but I also believe Shigaraki can be redeemed. So
he's killed a lot of people, man.
Look. I know.
He's killed a lot of people.
He's minced meat a lot of people, and Magneto has definitely done his share, right? And without like discussing, but in the future he eventually joins the X-Men. Like I'm talking about like Magneto, I think, and the way he approaches it, and a lot of like how I think the better villains are, you had mentioned, are the ones where you just really get why they do what they do. And it's like, I can't be mad at Magneto. On the other hand, feel like I can be mad at Shigaraki.
I think like when you get to like the root of evil, Shigaraki, even though his like, I don't know how to put it, but like he has like the seed of evil in him where it's like, that's just like pure unadulterated evil. Like his kill instinct, the fact that he did want to kill his dad and he even carried it out. Like, sure, he's a kid at the time, but like that is something that he sowed throughout his life. And that's where I'm like, I don't know if that character can be redeemed like that. Like I can understand the circumstances that pushed him that far, sure, but like if you put me on a jury to like be like, hey, does this guy deserve life in prison? I'd be like, yeah, I think he would deserve a life in prison.
Life in prison. But with like community service, right? Like,
what community service could he possibly do that wouldn't just lead him to rampage again?
We'll worry about that later. but it's, okay. So I guess, because do you think Shigaraki, for example, like to dial it back a little, like Isabella, right? Like you understood why she did what she had to do. Right, because it's like she's also in the same game. She's just trying to live, right? She's trying to survive from Promised Neverland, for those that are listening. And then for those that haven't seen My Hero, you've just recently learned out that, like, yes, Shigaraki had a terrible past, and he had this kind of like this trigger point, right? Where he finally, his powers manifested, and he went off, right? And then he just killed his whole family and the adorable dog, the corgi, which was hard.
Dude, that whole, I mean, honestly though, like when they were going through Shigaraki's backstory, me and Kelly, my girlfriend, we were literally just eating lunch and we're like, haha, like having a good time. Hey, let's watch My Hero Academia. That sounds like fun. And we would like look at the TV with our jaws agape, look at each other, look back at the TV and be like, oh my God. Because
they didn't pull punches, by the way.
They really did not, because like, and this is more a reaction to the actual episode now, but like the one, his father was pretty cruel. And like, I think what was interesting about the whole episode is they kind of drew this whole line of like how cruelty begets cruelty begets cruelty, right?
Right.
And in unintended ways, like the grandma who was, as we know, one of the previous
all
holders
for one for all. Sorry.
Yeah. She sort of abandoned her kid, and so and that was Shigaraki's dad, and Shigaraki's dad because of that was like, I'm going to make sure this kid never even touches Hero Society and whatever, and is like insanely cruel to his kid. Like Shigaraki has like bad allergies and he's like scratching his skin and all this stuff, and his timeout spot is like in the corner fence outside, and he's just like in the elements,
more elements and allergies allergy like reacting things. Yeah.
And and the whole time Shigaraki's just like, I want somebody to like protect me. Why won't anyone be on my side? Why will no one do this for me? And like you see all these moments of just like kind of unfortunate circumstances. And yeah, eventually he gets to a, like you said, a boiling point, and then he goes and kills everybody when his powers happen to manifest at that time.
Oh, well, I mean, before it just manifests, just seeing like the life leave Mon's eyes was saddening. But yeah, like, see, so that all happens, right? And so do you think, right, like that this is something that was already inside Shigaraki? No matter what, like this was already there. It was bound to happen. Like that's one of those things. Do you think that's the way it would have played out regardless? If not, then it would have eventually. Because a lot of villains, right? That's the one thing I always like to ask myself. It's like, taking a Shigaraki's or like a younger Magneto, would they have turned out with the same way in a different upbringing and all of that?
So I guess it kind of boils down to nature versus nurture, right? And I think there's a version of Shigaraki who is chums with Deku and the gang, right?
Right.
And like he has maybe not. I mean, this is actually where it gets really hairy with My Hero in particular when it comes to this stuff, is like he does have a power that is just absurdly dangerous, right?
Right.
But like you see
same with
what's
Rogue.
her face? The little girl with the horn, I forgot her name.
The one that everybody
I'm gonna look this
saves, but yeah.
But Eri, I think.
I think Eri. Yeah, I think it is Eri.
So, anyways, she has also another power that is incredibly dangerous, right?
Right.
And in some of the same ways as Shigaraki can delete people from existence, right?
Right.
But because she found the right people at the right time, she was able to. Because I think it wouldn't be a stretch to say that if Eri continued to grow up underneath Overhaul, maybe she would have turned the same way as Shigaraki, right? And so, like, I think Shigaraki, yes, if you had given him the same sort of love and nurturing that Eri is currently receiving from all the heroes, like, yeah, I think he could have been a different person, sure, but I think the difference there is that even Eri, when she realized how scary her powers could be, she realized how wrong it was for her to use it in that way. And she was scared of her own power versus Tomura, who like
he full
kind of like reveled in it. He was like, oh, I can kill my dad. I'm going to kill my dad.
Yeah.
And I think that's like the fundamental difference. Now, would he have felt that way if it wasn't for all the shitty things that his dad did? Like, I don't know. But I do think that if you put Eri in that situation, maybe it would have been different. I don't know.
See, I believe now, obviously I didn't read ahead, so I don't know anything about the manga.
Yeah.
But I do think because of how terrible Shigaraki's like upbringing was, and a good amount of like also just the League of Villains in general is, and like the circumstances and the hands they've been dealt, I think there's a point of return. Because I think at this point, what are they in high school or college?
I don't know.
I don't know, but
they're that vague, like
in between,
colleges,
high school, whatever. But the thing is, they're at a point in their lives where I think they can still turn things back. I still think that Shigaraki, though having kind of like a power that's really just what seems to be used for destruction, so is Rogue, right? Like think about Rogue, to draw another X-Men comparison, think Rogue, right? Her ability literally just killed people all the time. And, she couldn't control her powers. And I imagine Shigaraki would have done the same if it weren't for him eventually just full-fledged wanting to kill people and whatnot. So, but I do think at some point there is a point where I can, as weird as this sounds, okay, I'm not condoning the completely mincemeating of people that Shigaraki does, but I do think there is a way you can kind of almost move past it if you go take him. I know. It's
like okay, like by move past, like you think you could. Do you think you could reasonably have a beer with this guy if you so choose? Like if you somehow transport to their world and you happen to find yourself in front of Shigaraki and he was like, "Yo, man, you want to drink a beer?"
I would if I had known, right, there was a reform for him, right, like that he had actually gone through some kind of program with like All Might or something like that.
But do you think he would even accept that at this point?
At this point, he's too lost in his ways, right? He's too lost in his ways, along with all the League of Villains. But I think if you look at how the show has portrayed them, much like some of the best villains, they portray them in a way where well, you care, right? The way the writing is, you care about all of them, whether it's Twice, we don't know about Dabi yet, but like at least
Dabi seems like the least likely to have an understandable backstory.
Dabi is the one where I probably wouldn't want to ever get like I feel that there is no point of return for Dabi, right?
Yeah.
Which is weird because Shigaraki has done way worse. But that's because he's more of like a knee-jerk reaction kind of person. It seems like he's very reactive, and he's had a very bad hand in life and a small sample size of life. So naturally, his conclusion is that it's just let's kill things. Now, is it going to be easy? No, but I think Shigaraki is deserving of a point where he gets a second shot. Maybe not immediately. Maybe he serves his time in like, I don't know what it's called in My Hero, but like what is essentially equivalent to Rikers for those that follow like comic books and stuff. It's like a superhero prison, right? And so like they need to make something like that. He spends time in there, and maybe like Deku and all of these heroes, they come by and they visit him, right? Just like how you think about how Eraserhead and like all of them went and visited their old friend. Or the husk of their old friend, if you would, that is something I believe is still doable for Shigaraki.
Damn, you have so much faith in this guy who is just killing people left and right as we speak.
I mean, yes, right? Like right now, I mean, I believe there is a redemption point for him. Just like how you think, like on a smaller scale, right? Like on a smaller scale, for those that are watching Tokyo Revengers, right? Kazutora essentially kills Baji, right? And what happens there, he's had a very hard upbringing, and maybe that's just my sympathy for them makes me believe and see the better in them, right? So like,
oh man,
and maybe that's on me, and that's obviously how I perceive the situation. But I think that with a terrible upbringing, I think people can still come back from that.
Okay,
if you stop it early enough. If you stop it early enough, I think you can.
Sure. Oh, yeah, but like in Shigaragi's case, I just looked up his age. He's 21 now. Okay.
Right.
So he's in his 20s. He's kind of an adult,
I don't think I understand. I wouldn't say I was an adult at 21, right? So like,
sure. But I think like at this point, he could make his own decisions if he wanted to, right? Like, sure, he's still young and impressionable, sure, right. And he is for sure being impressed on by All For One,
right?
Still to this day, but like, I guess like, how bad of an upbringing does a person have to be for them to be redeemable? Because like. I think, just to use My Hero characters, I'm not gonna just theorize random things. Let's like keep it in the realms of what we've seen,
right?
Because like I think what's interesting is you have Deku, who has a very loving mother, right?
Right.
Mom is very, very kind, and so you're like, okay, Deku's gonna be a kind boy, sure. Now we have Bakugo, who also has a parent who's rough around the edges, but overall supportive, right?
Right.
And Bakugo is not a villain, despite him acting out sometimes. And then you have Todoroki, who honestly has more than a right to feel as antagonized about the hero world as any of these other villains, but he ends up being on the side of like on the better, I guess.
Right.
So what's the difference here for you, I guess?
The difference here is, first off, Endeavor, at the end of the day, right? I mean, yes, he was a terrible dad. I think it was a terrible dad, and Todoroki's upbringing was awful. But there is still that hero core, right? And Shigaraki and all the League of Villains just feel like they've only had All for One as their fatherly figure, right? Or their
do you think? I don't think Shigaraki's dad was a villain by any means. You know, was he a hero? Sure, no, but like he was a guy who was looking after his own family. I don't think his dad was inherently evil. Was he like overly? I don't know, man. That guy needed therapy years ago. But like, I mean, you know,
he's got shonen dad vibes. You know what I mean? Terrible. He's terrible.
But like, my point there is that sure, he's not a hero, but I don't think he's the worst dad ever. Because like, I mean, you know, speaking to like bad. My dad, I don't think my dad was particularly that great, but he tried his best, and even though he didn't really do the right things a lot of the time, you know, like I still appreciate him for doing the best with what he had, I guess. And and so like, I don't know. I didn't turn out to be like Shigaraki, or so you think.
Or do I? Or is there something I don't know about? Right?
Like, don't look in my closet. There's a lot of dust in there. It's just dust. I swear.
Just dust. Okay. All right. Well, if we ignore the limbs hanging from your closet, let's.
No skeletons, just dust. Anyways,
I do believe that yes, like it's not easy. It's not easy, and but I think I don't know how they would write it. But I think there's a timeline where I would love to see Shigaraki just kind of actually get the shot, like get to a shot at the dream that he wanted, right? I think undeserving as it may seem, look, the Thunderbolts exist in the world of Marvel. So can the League of Villains. And Thunderbolts are a reformed team of villains that are trying to be Avengers light, right?
Dude, I'm just trying to imagine a future where Shigaraki is drawn with big old ooh eyes the way Deku does. you know, just like I can't see it. I can't see it. That boy needs a lot of lotion first.
Oh yeah, God knows what's going on over there. Like he's dry. That dude is like he is dry. But
get him some water.
he is parched. But like he shows that. I mean, just look at all the hands. Right, there's sentimental parts of Shigaraki and who he is. Think about the hands and the memories associated with each hand on him. Right. It's in a weird, morbid, like, oh God, that's really creepy and scary kind of way, but it shows there is a human, right? And I think there is definitely a timeline where Shigaraki will still be rough around the edges. Just imagine a more like Todoroki, but potentially will kill you, right? Like,
yes, that's the guy I want hanging around. The guy who just might snap and kill some,
but he could be a great asset, right, to the team, right? Like he could be, and maybe I'm just being the mad scientist that's like, no, don't kill the alien life form. Bring it back to the lab, right? Like, and
that's how the alien outbreak starts, you know?
I mean, yeah, and maybe that's true, but I think, see, like, that's how you know, by the way, the writing of the villains, the League of Villains has been solid so far, is because they've done it in a way where I feel for them and I want them to come back. I'm in a weird way, they're the underdog that I'm kind of rooting for. I'm like, you know what? Because they still, like, Twice still shows that he cares about friends, right? Like, I think it's very much so, like, put on display when he's like, what, you think because we're the League of Villains, we can't care for our friends? See, like, that shows there's still humanity in all of these villains so far, and I love that. I love that so far.
Yeah, but only when it comes to their own, right? And I think that's...
But at the end of the day, is that really all that different?
I think it's the heroes. You know, I think there's a lot of real world consequences of tribalism.
I mean, yes, there are. But I think overall, though, they just care for each other because that's all they've known, right? They've known each other as family, right? So, like, some people will go to the ends of the earth to defend their family, right? And that is why family. Sorry. If one thing our great philosopher Vin Diesel has taught me, and it is you never turn your back on family. Okay, so like, I believe.
I don't know, man.
Okay. So Shigaraki irredeemable, right? No, but what about So
I think that whole crew is like it would be very hard to redeem anybody in that crew at this point.
Even Twice?
Yeah, I mean, Twice is a danger to himself and everyone else. I think the truth. I think the thing is, like, I believe in corrective behavior, right?
Yeah.
Like correcting somebody's way of thinking, and like, dear God knows that like these people need just so much therapy to be like functional human beings again. But like, I think if you wanted to two-way street this a bit, I think if I was in that world, I would understand that the current situation makes it really hard and for certain types of quirks to exist in the same society. And I think that's a true fact for them. But at the same time, I think like as soon as you're going out killing people in order to do, like, it's really hard to be like, okay, all right, you got a point. You got a point.
You don't think you could shake their ways? Like, you can make them change their ways? I'm not saying that, like, once again, that they killed people. Oh, sweep that under the rug. No one.
Yeah. So like, okay. So if they somehow got the punishment that they needed, do I believe that it like? Could they clean slate it from here on out? Like, let's say, magically they get all the punishment they deserve, wrapped up into like, something, and then they move on from that and become a new person forward. Like, yeah, I mean, I believe that, but I also think that like I just think once you've killed that many people, you just,
I mean, yeah, look,
they're just too. There's like, as soon as you kill that many people for that long of a period, and at any point you didn't stop and think and go, wait, are we the bad guys? Like, like at any point you were like, I think on one hand, I do think like, again, society has a lot of bad things in it, right? Like,
right.
And this goes for in My Hero. I don't agree that like some quirks probably do get just completely I don't know what's the word for it, discriminated against. And in real world stuff too, like, I totally get that the system does not make sense for a lot of people, and we do have to fight the system. And I think like, God, in a very real world way, that sometimes like trying to appeal to politicians and whatnot to get the changes that you need done isn't enough. Sure, I think I can understand that, but when it gets to such a radicalized version of that, that's when it feels like it's hard to get people on your side. And like, dude, I am having all sorts of philosophical debates as I'm speaking in my own head right now. I feel like Bubaigara. I feel like I'm splitting apart like twice and like debating with myself, because I'm like, well, if they do have a point with this, because like this is what's going through my head. Okay. So if they do have a point and society is innately against them and no one will listen to them because politicians are too up their own asses like the real world, and they won't listen to them and they must resort to violence, how much violence is considered okay in order to get their point across? And is it really only to the point where like the public people are for you, right? Like, or is it that like if you are so the true bad ending, God, dude, I'm so deep in this in my own head. The true bad ending to all of this would be that you can only get your way by being more powerful than the existing structures, right? That's the bad ending, right? That's just pure terrorism. That's pure like Machiavellian government stuff, where like the only way to get the world that you want is to violently take over and upthrow the current government, right?
That's Magneto.
Yeah, I think that's the true bad ending. I think a slightly bad ending is like you are a guerrilla force trying to hold your point of view, which you believe is correct, and that like through the plights of going as far, as like violent actions and whatnot, but not to the point where like you are subjugating an entire people under your power, and instead you're like, this is we're having to do this because the government itself doesn't believe in us, but the people believe in us. Then I start to be like, okay, well maybe they have a point, but then I think to myself, is it really just about getting as many people under you who believe in the same thing? Is that what society is? I'm like, dude, I'm like, what is society now? What am I even saying? Is a good society just one that caters to as many people as possible, or is a better society where everyone has like a equal share of the pie? I don't know. And I guess like theoretically, everyone having a share of the pie is good. But like, does that even exist? Is that utopian? Is that just I don't know. I'm blown away.
And that is going to be on a whole nother deeper topic that's going to surpass everything that's going on in My Hero, and for all the animes and shows. But like, you do see bits and pieces of that questioned throughout like tons of shows, right? Like you see that especially in like X-Men and like you're gonna, and I see them eventually doing that with the League of Villains, right? And I know, like, look, if you ignore the fact that like, okay, Dragon Ball takes out the nitty gritty, right? If you think about how Vegeta actually works and how much everybody loves Vegeta, he actually probably killed a lot of people, right? Think about that. They just didn't show it, right? Like, but everybody loves Vegeta. I love Vegeta, right? But the dude, if it were, it's a lot like if you try to take away the blindfolds for a second here, you know for a fact that Vegeta, to get to the Saiyan Prince and him going through planet to planet with Nappa, he's killed tons of people. Tons. But we saw a redemption point for him. So why not give that to Shigaraki? Who actually, I think, is more deserving than Vegeta is. Because Vegeta is just entitlement.
Well, the evidence is stacked against Shigaraki, and we have not yet seen Vegeta.
okay, so we just don't look at Vegeta's like, it's like, you know,
we haven't confirmed, right? It's like Schrodinger's murder. Like, has he killed people? Has he not?
How does he dominate planets?
By being really strong.
He beats them in chess, or he races them for pinks, right? And then,
yeah. And they're like, oh yeah, you got it, man. You got it.
Dang, dude, your S2K is so fast, bro. I couldn't beat it.
I think of other villains in Dragon Ball Z who
Piccolo.
are actually, you see people. Does Piccolo kill somebody?
I mean, Piccolo pretty like okay. Piccolo doesn't kill somebody just because he's a villain, right? Piccolo has defended, you know, like he's Piccolo's done things.
What was Piccolo's story? Why did he fight Goku in the first place again? I don't even remember now. I gotta look this up.
And I mean, I know this is like on a lesser scale, but like, yeah, like there's lots of villains that we've now accepted, right? Like as a reformed character. And I just see that I think there are definitely characters that can come back despite them maybe having a little bit of a little bit of blood on their ledger, right?
I think, dude, I don't remember Piccolo killing somebody.
But of course he didn't, because they didn't show it. but
I mean, what was he? Was he an evil guy to begin with?
I mean, he was actually, considering our dad episode, maybe Goku was the villain.
Dude, I think Goku is kind of a villain.
And look at that. We love Goku.
But I do not love Goku. I think Goku's a jerk. I think Goku's he's a heckin' jerk, man. I mean, he just goes around and just wants to fight stronger people. That's all he wants to do.
That's almost villainy, right? Like,
yeah, dude, literally when you think about it, Goku's just going up beating up. I mean, to be fair, he usually does beat other people who do the wrong thing more first. Right. Like Frieza, Cell, and whatnot.
Yeah. Boo did that's cheating. Boo does, see, because we split Boo in half, so like, you know, we got the good Boo.
And there's the evil kid Boo side, and then there's fat Boo who just wants to eat and be chubby and cute.
And hang out with Hercule, right? But okay.
Oh my god, I forgot about Hercule. What a character.
But like, if you ignore that, right? Like there's lots of characters that have kind of come back despite that. And there's stuff that's like kind of like, oh, well, it's hinted they've got a very deep villainous past. So I don't see a reason why Shigaraki and other characters couldn't, right? Like I think of like as I had mentioned earlier, Kazutora, right? The one like from Tokyo Revengers, or even not from anime, or I mean, Final Fantasy is pretty much an anime. Emmett Selk, right? Like Emmett Selk from the Shadowbringer storyline, you know, like that dude. I understood whether he was redeemable. I don't know. The ass scenes as a whole, whatever, right? But but I do think like characters like Magneto and all of them, they just dance this line, and I think they're not far from being like able like to kind of come back. Right? To come back.
I mean, I think like a hop skipping away, like I could understand. I think Emmett Sulk, I just love him as a villain because so for people who have not played Final Fantasy 14, one, go play Final Fantasy 14.
It's free.
It's free. Well, up until Heavensward, the
right.
award-winning Heavensward, yeah,
Yep.
the free trial. But Shadowbringers is the most recent expansion, and I'm going to spoil a little bit here, guys. So if you were going to play Final Fantasy 14, which you should, this is spoilers for that. But Emmett Sulk is the main villain in that, and essentially, his whole ordeal is that like people that we see now are actually just remnants of his old fractured world, and our existence was made possible because of the fracturing of his world, and he wants to put his world back together and basically wiping out all of the things that live today in order to restore his old home.
Now you may remember this, except for Emmett Sulk isn't trying to do half the people like Thanos.
Oh yeah, no, it was not about the evening the way
which by the way Thanos dude, Avengers Endgame or Infinity War is his hero's journey.
Okay, we'll talk about that in a second here because I have some thoughts there too. Because I think what makes these guys interesting villains is that they're really only like one step away from like being on the good guy's side in some cases, right? Like
it swings either way. It swings either way because they're also ones. I think they're perfectly in a range where they could go terrible or good, right? And
well, I think they end up because so if they're playing hokey pokey with the evil line, right? I think in the end, at the last hokey pokey dance, they cross over, right? And I think for Emmett, it's like he decides that the world as it is currently doesn't hold up to his world back then, and so he is willing to sacrifice everything that exists now in order to restore what was lost before. And I think that's like, it's a very like yours versus ours type of thing, and like it's understandable, but it's also like we can't allow you to just kill our people, so therefore we must stop you, right?
Yeah, we must body the Emmett.
Yeah, because like theoretically we could have been on, if we were on Emmett's side, we'd see us sort of actually no. Thinking more on it, it still doesn't make sense because the people who exist now aren't the cause of his people's death, and so like I think that's the core issue that I have with Emmett Sulk is like, and that's the part that he thinks it's okay, but I think the general person probably wouldn't think that's okay. Going back to Thanos, like Thanos' whole ordeal was that like, these worlds get overpopulated and the world suffers because people overpopulate them and they, turn for the worse. And so by him thinning out, essentially it's like, like deer season, but instead it's Earth season.
Right.
And he's just culling the population in order for it to have more room to grow again. Like, sure, I think that falls under the philosophy of what, utilitarianism ? No, I forget which ism it is, but like the idea that like there's a greater good to be had by sacrificing the people like some people for the like the greater good. And I think for the most part like that's like a idealistic thing, but like we don't get to choose who goes or anything. It's not like a consensual thing.
Right, it's fair to
fair
Thanos.
And impartial.
And for those that are listening, I have finger quotes and air quotes around the fair, by the way. But yeah, like okay. So would you say then, on a scale of let's just say, basic borderline villain, right, is a 1. Let's just say, I don't know, some mustache twirling, clicking of the heels ties to the like railroad tracks, right, like almost Waluigi. And then at the top, like, would you say that Shigaraki and the League of Villains fall Like, are they on a higher, like do you think they're not as redeemable? Like, do you think Thanos
is Tan like redeemed, or like
I would say 10 is like too far gone. So
10 is like ultra evil.
Yeah, like who would you put at the 10 spot?
Oh, just like
villains?
Deeply darkest, just cruel villains. Like we're talking like Hitler, or whatever.
Yeah.
Ooh, this is a good question. I mean, Doflamingo Don Quixote from One Piece, I think is just
at the
like,
top. Is at the top.
He is evil. Man, that guy is evil. Who else is just evil?
I mean, I feel like Eren Yeager's dad is evil. But I don't think he's a 10. I don't think he's a 10.
I don't think he's a 10.
I would say Eren Yeager's dad, though, and like, FMA dad, like.
Ooh, Show Tucker's also pretty up there.
Show Tucker's definitely up there, right? Like, I would say Show Tucker's more of like an 8. I would say about
he's
an 8.
up there, yeah. Dude, Bondrewd from what's that show called? Made in Abyss?
Yeah.
That dude might also be close to a 10 too, man. That guy is all sorts of messed up.
And then so you take that, right? That's sort of like the listeners, the watchers, that's your meter, right? Like that's okay. Where does Shigaraki and the League of Villains fall in that?
And one is like a guy who picked up a wallet off the ground, took half of it, and then returned it to the police station.
Yeah.
Let's see. I would say he is probably still like a 7.
You think he's that high up there? You're saying he's like a peg under. Like, okay.
I mean, he's like several pegs under like being truly evil, but he's pretty freaking evil, man.
And where do you put Thanos and like Emmett Selk in that?
Still pretty evil.
So okay.
Because I think the last step is like the deep one, like
right.
I think like wanting what's best for the world is like a true and just noble thing.
Well, but as they say, the road to hell is paved with best intentions, right?
Yeah, and that's why I'm saying like. Even though I think that they're, what I said before, they're only like a step away from doing the right thing. I think that last step is a really big one. And because like, I think, and this is total philosophy here, right? This is just me.
Yeah. A lot of this is philosophy.
As humanity, I think like it's our duty as a functioning society to want the betterment of every person, right? Like I think everybody deserves a chance to live a fulfilling life, right? And like I don't want to sacrifice people in order to do that. I want everyone to be able to choose that for themselves, because I think that freedom of choice is what's really important. Like I think about the Matrix sometimes, about this, like the idea of choice. And like, I think
red or blue,
but given that choice is the important thing, right? Versus just being in the Matrix or being out of the Matrix. Like I think you're being presented that choice is like what is truly important. Because like, I think, I don't know. The problem with Thanos' thing is like you're sacrificing people who'd never get to choose. It's impartial and fair to him, but like
fair again.
The biggest air quotes have like the hugest air quotes. Fair. And same thing with Emmett Selk. Like. You think it's okay to just wipe out everything that's okay here for what you consider is better, like I don't think that's a very fair thing. Like we didn't get a choice in that, right? Like I mean, and so I think I don't know.
What about see, I think the Magneto's loaded with just so many quotes on this, right? Because I think one of the finer, like the cooler, I guess one of the more intense quotes from Magneto is like, peace was never an option, right? And I think that is a quote we know that Magneto has said. And, he wasn't exactly provided with a choice either. Right?
Yeah.
So
peace was never an option is funny, right? Because I think there's peace, right? Peace is like no one's hurting each other.
Right.
And then there's like, we go into steps of violence, right? Like, I punched a guy to get my point across, right?
Right.
And then there's like, I'm going to overthrow the government, create terror across the entire world, and try to take it over. You know?
I'm going to put everybody in a metal ball. I'm going to shoot them into space.
Yeah, so like, you know, peace was never an option. Sure, I think I can agree with that. I think there's a lot of causes that I think people would certainly put their livelihood at stake for. But I also think there's a gap there between like,
and that's quite the gap, right? That's quite the gap. But you see, like, and the reason why I say all of this is because I feel that Tomura and the League of Villains didn't really have an option, right? Like, I feel like they just you got to think of it too. Like, you are a 4 or 5 year old child, right? You know what I mean? Like, there are extremes. You deal in extremes there.
Yeah, I think society failed them 100%. Right?
So
like they're a product of failed society.
Because of that, right there, that they are a product of their, you know, terrible upbringing and, you know, the society failing them. And like, it's not their fault. That, like, example, Tomura is like, quirk, you know, kind of disintegrates things. Kind of, I mean, does whatever, you know.
He's a living bioweapon, literally.
Yeah. Okay, he is a bioweapon. I'm not going to deny that. Do I want to give him a handshake? No. But the thing here is, I think that's why, like, he deserves a shot, and I think my assumption is at some point, hopefully, they all get to come back at some point. Now, if it were something like, the differences between them, I would, and like, maybe let's just say a Thanos and all that. Thanos is like thousands of years older, and he, you know, like he knows what he's doing, right? I think that there is no bringing Thanos back. He is delusional, and he is off his, like, you know, that's it. He's on the deep end, right?
Yeah.
I think Thanos, Emmett Selk, all of them, they're like about a 9 or a 10, right? And then, you know, like they might actually be the scariest villains. Because they're the ones that think that they aren't doing anything wrong, right? They're actually the scariest type of villain. The other ones, they're just...
To be fair, Emmett Selk comes around a little bit, but anyways.
I mean, he helps. Yes. Okay. So, Thanos is at the 10, and Emmett Selk's more like at a 7, 8, you know, whatever.
Okay.
Right? I think that's fair. That's fair to say. I think Shigaraki is like actually around a 4.
I just want to know how low this number is. A 4?
I think he's a 4. I think Eren Yeager's dad, the mad scientist-y type, they're around 5 or 6. I think Eren Yeager's dad is a higher threat to humanity.
You know what it is?
Than the dude that's
disintegrating
things.
The thing that's important to me is how willing are they to talk it over, right? Because like, I think what's interesting about Emmett Selk. And actually, now that I think about it, I'm dropping his number as I speak in my head, because he was willing to give people a chance, right?
True.
And so he observed the world. He saw like what was in it, and he wanted to eventually, like, again, the part that's wrong is that he's
choice.
Yes. So 100% he's in the wrong. I'm not saying that he's not in the wrong, but like, he does hear out, you know, the Warrior of Light, and he does decide that, hey, based off of the Warrior of Light and the stuff that they're doing, maybe there is hope for this world after all. And so he eventually like accepts that and leaves.
By the way, for those that are listening, he once again, so like Emmett Selk does give humanity a choice, or like not a choice, but he observes humanity, and through and it's through his eyes whether or not, like, he is the judge, right, of whether or not humanity deserves another shot.
Yeah, and I guess you could also say Thanos sort of does the same thing, because he goes around worlds and he like just determines. But I think the big question here is, how willing would you be to try to like talk it over and see what is actually possible for those people? And like, right. I think it's tough when you're talking about Thanos and Emmett Selk level things, because they're talking
they're
like
on a very
the world,
big scale,
the universe. Yeah, their scale is so big that it's hard.
But you see, that's it. That's right. Like, they're on a way bigger scale, and they're so far gone. I can't see them coming back. I don't see a redemption story for them.
But the thing I think with Shigaraki is, do you think that if, you know, whoever it is, like all the people from the academia and the government came down and sat Shigaraki down and was like, let's talk. Do you think Shigaraki would talk with them?
Okay. You know the answer to that is 1000% no.
Because that's where I think now it's more selfish of them for what they're not trying to prove a cause anymore. They're just doing it to better themselves. And I think that's like a big point in why I think they're more villainous than redeemable.
Okay.
Right? Because like if you were doing this for a cause, then you would be in support of that cause and trying, you know, like if they fought and they were like, the government won't back down on the fact that they will not deal with the fact that like there are people with quirks that you know, that have their rights impinged in what should be an unlawful way, but you guys don't recognize it. And if the government does at some point address that, then they should be happy with what they've done. You know, they were the driving force into making real change happen in their society. But if they're not even willing to talk it out from that point on, you know, like, I don't know.
But I mean, there hits a point, right, where you as the villains and all of them and the way they're brought up, just like Magneto, hit a point where you're just tired. Talks kind of just end the same. And I don't think that that's necessarily correct, right? Yeah. But the thing here is I'm trying to put myself from that perspective. And it's like, okay, that it's hard talking over and over. And like, you know, Shigaraki doesn't even have the ability to talk because he doesn't know how to. He's never had to resolve things through talking, right? He's only just disintegrated it or...
Turns out that's a pretty good bargaining chip.
Yeah, it's like, how about this? I let you live and don't disintegrate you. Well, okay, good. Good argument. All right. Yeah. But I think this is also, once again, how, as you heard Xell mention, this is like a little bit of my philosophies and how I view the world. I will always see the better in every person. Right. And to a fault. and I understand that it's a fault. So don't worry. But I think that's why I've loved this arc, right? And I think there are other characters. Okay, let me ask you this then. What are some villains? We've talked about the League of Villains. We've talked about, you know, the extremes, right? We've talked about the person that steals from you. Okay,
there's there's one last thing I want to mention too, and I think this is a big thing too. Is that like with both My Villain Academia and Magneto, and this idea that like talk has never gone anywhere. When I watch My Hero Academia, I believe in the heroes, right? And I believe them to be just people, right? Because we've seen All Might and the people around him. We think that they are just people. If the governments and all that are truly corrupt at a level in which that, like, you know, talks don't go through, then I could see they have a point. That's the difference.
Oh, riding the line here, right, buddy? Okay,
all right, dude. I am literally trying to navigate this with a scalpel. Okay, like I am like carving this marble statue of philosophy. Just chip by chip here.
Listeners and watchers, we're just gonna have this philosophical development right now. By the way,
but I think that's like a really important thing too, because like, I also acknowledge that, you know, just from the real world, that the current government doesn't listen to people with jack shit. Like, you know, you know, if we were to take superpowers and all that, and you equate them to the real world, it's just like, how much money do you have in your bank account? That's how
money is a superpower. Tony Stark and Batman are proof.
Dude, I don't know if you've ever watched Bungo Stray Dogs, but there's literally a villain whose power is exponentially equal to like how much money he spends. And so
I'm not surprised. Are you kidding me? That's the most anime thing ever, right? Like,
and also the least anime thing ever, because it's just real world. I mean,
maybe the real world, isn't it? Well, okay, I say that because if you've watched the Yu-Gi-Oh, I mean, yes, I might like Yu-Gi-Oh, but if you I am wearing a Yu-Gi shirt right now for those that are listening and you don't see the visual cue, but they're literally, in one of the movies, they brought the old cast back, Joey, Yugi, and Kaiba. And literally the resolution of that movie and how they solved like any kind of time paradox or butterfly effect, anything like that, is Kaiba just says, "Screw you, I'm rich." That's why. Money.
That's pretty good.
Dude, why didn't you just say so? I didn't know being rich just corrected the timeline. Anyways, so yeah, like in the world of that is My Hero though, I do believe that the heroes, like if everyone, I believe it's more of like All Might, Bakugo, Deku, you know, that class, right? Class 1A. I think I look at them as an oddity in that world because it seems like everybody else, because what makes them so special? That's what I ask, right? Like, it's like, okay, well, what makes them seem so special and stand out in this world is because they have all of this like spirit. And then, you know, like All Might, why was he such a great hero, right? Because he never stopped, you know, he always had a smile on it. And he seemed like he was for true justice, right? Or whatever that could be, right? Mm-hmm. But then that makes me wonder about everybody else around them, right? Like, and that makes me think, is everybody else around them more of just like, oh, I'm a superhero because it's a job?
Yeah, well,
and so like that's why I look at Deku and all of them. If I'm looking at that world, Deku and all of them are the exception.
I guess. I don't know. I mean, we kind of get a glimpse of Endeavor
this is speculation.
And Hawks.
Right,
yeah,
by the way. Because like you look at Hawks.
Because we don't know. We have no idea.
Right. Well, I assume if everyone's like Hawks and just cared about ranking, right, of the hero as opposed to, let's just say, who Deku just wants to be a hero as opposed to like a top ranked hero. Or I mean, he wants to be like All Might in the right ways as opposed to all the wrong parts of it, right? Like the fame. Like you wouldn't want to be a hero because of that, right? Or maybe you do, but and there are heroes that kind of talk about why they want to be a hero, and I'm like, okay. And I mean, Ochaka or whatever, she's just like, I just want to be rich. I'm like, you might not have exactly the right, you know, ways going into that, but that's...
Well, but she's doing it to help her family out, you know?
Right.
Like,
that is a different part, right? That's where I'm like, okay, that I can understand. You want to help your family. So, you know, they're at her core, she's a good person. You can see that.
Have you ever watched The Boys?
I have.
That's the version of... Like, when I think of the antithesis to My Hero, that's who I think of. Because, like, I think because All Might was the number one guy and he was, like, true and just and whatever, like, he became the beacon of hope and, like, we believe in him, right?
Right.
That he will do the right thing. Always, right?
Right.
And now we juxtapose that to The Boys, where their version of All Might. I mean,
oh God, that whole team. Okay,
of superheroes, very different.
Who would have
right?
known that Carl Urban is the dude that I'm just like, all right, that's my dude. That's my hero right there.
and so, like, you know, again, I think of the main characters of The Boys as being justified because they are outgunned and outmanned by these truly evil people at the top who, you know, are keeping the society the way they want it to be because they have the power to enact whatever they want, right?
Right.
And so them killing, you know, the invisible guy, I forgot his name.
I forgot his
name. The invisible
guy. Yeah, invisible. I can't put a face to the, you know, no face, so, you know, I can't remember his name.
I just know the detail of how he died.
Yeah. Oh yeah. We know. We don't gotta go into that one. We know how he dies.
He gets rear-ended in a very unfortunate way. But like
it's popping, you know.
It was a very explosive ending.
Yeah. We by now spoiled it if you haven't figured it out. At that point, anyways, it's just like we could just say it.
But, you know, like, in that case, I think they're justified. And, like, you know, you can say, like, oh, we've seen what they're like at the top and they do not deserve their pedestal, I guess.
Okay.
Yeah.
Now, what are some villains then that you do think? Like, you know, as I had mentioned, right, we'd gone on about this. This is a lot of like philosophical questions and stuff like that. So thanks for hanging along with us here. But let's get to, we've gone the extremes of the spectrum, but we haven't gotten into the middle, right? So what are some heroes or villains, I mean, that you think have done some, you know, obviously questionable things, but deserve a way back then?
Oh, man. I think... I might be looking at this through rose-tinted glasses, goggles, whatever. Meruem from Hunter x Hunter was one that, like... So have you watched?
Oh yes. Oh yes. Yes. Yes.
Okay.
Yes. Well,
And do you remember
which
the Chimera
one?
Ant arc?
Blue-haired like Hisoka or pink-haired Hisoka?
Pink hair.
Okay, that's the redo, right?
Yeah.
Yes. That's the one on Netflix 2010, 2011. Yeah, that one.
I think so.
Yeah, whatever.
And so, anyways,
Pink-haired Hisoka, that's how I remember the differences.
in the Chimera Ant arc, right?
Right.
We hear about the king of the ants, which is going to be Meruem, and we get a little insight into him, which is that he is just an unstoppable god. And what's interesting about Meruem is he meets this sniveling little brat of a girl who is just a god at shogi, and for the first time in his life, he realizes that he is not this like all like he isn't a god amongst mortals. There is other people who can do things better than he can, and that was like a huge blow to him because he realized that like, oh, people have worth beyond just like their physical power or whatever. And I thought he was such an interesting character, and he kills people. He doesn't even think twice about killing people sometimes.
Yeah.
But he's essentially a child though, in that like he was literally born, accelerated into his like adolescent form.
Yeah.
And so he's essentially just a super powered child, right?
Super powered baby. That's terrifying.
Yeah.
Okay.
and so like he's still in his learning phase. And so like, yes, he is so dangerous that like the hunters have to deal with him, and he's threatening to take over the world essentially. But I thought in another way, like, because of his character development with that girl and him understanding that like, oh, the potential in people is variable, I thought he was like a really interesting villain for that reason, and that like I could kind of understand him, and I kind of feel bad for him in some ways too, and that like, hey, dude, he was just a hype god. He was born out of the womb with people like on the mic just being like, "Yo, it's about to go down." Meruem's he's a G. He's about to take over the world. He's stronger than you. He's faster than you. Yeah. He's smarter than you. He's got it all. He's even handsome. Not really, but like, but like you get it. And like I almost equate it to like Justin Bieber, who like grew up in sort of a similar circumstance, and he was a giant jerk growing up, and he's cooled off a lot. Like honestly, he's cooled off a lot. So the ant
arc could be potentially the baby arc, if you would.
Yeah, yeah. Meruem is just Justin Bieber in another lifetime.
Yeah. Okay, so it's just anime Justin Bieber. Got it. That's
because honestly though, seriously, like child actors and a lot of that, like I think of it as a very similar thing. They get corrupted by this idea of like inflated self-worth and blah blah, and it takes a while. And like Meruem's killed things, so maybe also again, if your bar is killing people, is it? But it's also tough because Meruem is so powerful that like anything he does could kill people.
Right.
So at what point do you fault him?
Not on a like killing scale, but it is a little bit like how you would think some of the characters. Like I would be worried about his reactions, right? Because think of it like the characters in animes that don't lose. Like, what's the redheaded dude from Kuroko no Basque, the leader of the final team?
I forget.
But you know who I'm talking about. He had never lost. So he never learned how to lose gracefully.
Yeah.
And so that's, imagine a superpowered baby that is now a superpowered Justin Bieber that has only known just fame, excelling, and it just never failed. So those are, once again, those are the scariest villains. And I mean, like it's that or the delusional ones, but I mean, like I guess they're all kind of like overlap in delusions, but I guess.
Yeah.
I don't know. I mean, I don't think he's redeemable.
Like less so than Shigaraki?
I would only say by a hair, but only by a because okay.
Yeah, I mean, okay. I think I would. I think he's more redeemable in some ways than Shigaraki.
Shigaraki is like a 4, and I would say he's right at like a 4.5.
Okay.
Close. Okay. Close to redemption. So I guess you're not wrong. I could kind of see it. So what are some other characters?
I mean, I think like truly redeemed characters just end up being like, usually they just end up being part of the team, right? Like,
right.
Sasuke, for example, he's a villain.
I mean,
for a lot of Naruto, right?
it's also like the only good character, I think, actually.
Well, was he? I mean, he's a villain. He leaves the Konoha village. He even says he wants to end the Konoha village. Like, is that not a villain? Excuse me?
I mean, I want to delete green from magic. That is, you know, like.
Well, I think we've come full circle here. Crim, you're like a 4.
I'm a 4 on that. Wow, that's high, dude. I would say maybe a 1.
Green from magic.
I would say maybe a 1, right? But like, oh, fine. See, like, okay, Are there any others then, like that are close? Because I mean, we were kind of chit chatting, and I think one of the ones, you know, if you all watch Dr. Stone, what about Tsukasa? You seem to, you know, we had some discussion. So what do you think about Tsukasa then?
It's funny because I think you're missing some context because I know you didn't watch the second season.
I didn't see season 2. I only know.
I'm talking about season 1 Tsukasa.
Okay,
and he's like killing people left and right. He's like,
feral.
You don't fit in my world.
Feral.
Yeah, he's just like, you don't fit my worldview. You're gone. Yeah, basic. Be you know, later.
Okay.
You find out in season 2 though that he actually has a lot of care in all this stuff.
I believe that, and you can spoil it to me. I don't care because the show still moves too slow for me to enjoy.
How dare you?
You're
like a 5. Your anime taste is so irredeemable. You're just like sinking further and further into.
Wow, bro. Okay, we're gonna. Okay, all right.
Merim and Crim, I'd be like, well. Anyways, so you find out that he actually takes the time to really like learn everybody, and everyone he destroys or whatever, he actually gathers up all the pieces and like can like gather them in a way that they're not like truly like forgotten or whatever. And so like you find out that
he has trinkets.
No, I wouldn't say that. Well, so anyways, they eventually what happens is that he teams up with Tsukasa or Senku,
yeah.
And they, you know, piece together all the people that he, you know, quote unquote destroyed. And so like, you know, there's a part where
I don't know, man. That's like wearing a necklace of ears,
but not really. No, but like they glue the ears back on the people, and there's no scar, you know. And they don't know that they never lost the ears, you know. So like, really, what harm is there?
Oh, you know, they do say super glue fixes everything. So,
dude, if an ear falls off and no one's around to hear it or see it, you know, is it really? I don't know. God damn it.
Okay. See, like this is because, you know, there's I think anime's villains have gotten a little more cut and dry. Right? I would say it's been a while since we do have good anime villains. Please don't think that all anime villains are bad. But at the end of the day, I'm always excited when anime, you know, like without going too long here, anime has really solid villains. And I don't mean the cut and dry ones. I mean the ones where you can kind of like put yourselves in their shoes, see where they're coming from. And, you know, I always like to ask like which ones can come back and you could see returning to the cast or being redeemable in some way, shape, or form. And for all the people that are watching current animes like, you know, Tokyo Revengers and stuff like that, I do think that Kazutora is somebody that should come back, right? And at some point, because he does, and like he is in this position where he has to live with the fact, with all the things he's done, and it shows that there's still a human there, and I think that's why I like that. So I like when shows offer villains like that. Now, this isn't whether or not Tokyo Revengers is the best anime, but this is more of just like villains across anime and, you know, where,
And that isn't to say that other types of villains aren't great, because like I love me some just straight up I'm a bad guy villains too, you know, like everyone loves Togura from Yu Yu Hakusho. Like he
Toguro?
is scary as heck. Toguro, yeah. Like he's scary as heck, but he's a great villain. Aizen from Bleach, I thought he was a great villain. Total bullshit power, but like he's scary. He's a great villain. Pain from Naruto, great villain.
Yeah, I actually liked Team Toguro too. So and like Pain and like those are really cool cool villains, right? Like it's not
they're cool
necessarily
villains,
bad
not
thing,
redeemable.
but- yeah.
But yeah.
So
we've only talked about a flavor of villain, honestly. So
Right. We went into a deep dive of a type of villain. But I guess as we wrap up here, we're starting to wrap up on run a little long here. Right now, if you could, no matter what their deeds are, for the listeners at home, one last go of it. Who would you turn it like to see on the good side again? One more time. You can only pick one from all animes, universes beyond anime.
Oh my god! Why would you end me on this question?
This
I'm
is the
stuck
one.
in the think tank. I'm stuck in the think tank.
I don't know what that correlates to slurp sounds and like eating ramen, I guess, but
Oh my god, dude! I'm in decision paralysis right now. I'm like literally replaying all the animes.
Pros,
It's like
cons,
flipping in front of my eyes.
pie
You know, like
charts.
Marvel movies.
Yeah.
In the beginning, where it like flips through all the pages. That's me right now through all my anime that I've watched.
you get to redeem. You get one get out of whatever jail free card, for the lack of better, and you get that villain is now part of the winning team.
Man. Oh man, this is so hard. This is so hard.
Yeah, but and you know what? It doesn't even have to be your favorite one. What about the first one that hits the top of your head?
I'm still stuck, man. You know, I was thinking, however, you know who is a guy who did come back and did become part of the squad?
Who?
Prince Zuko in Avatar.
Oh, that's our favorite sad boy, though.
Yeah,
that's our
so
favorite sad boy. You
but
can't pick him.
he had his redemption arc. So
Yeah. And by the way, we're assuming that he also killed people, right? You don't just light somebody on fire and well, they probably lived.
did he know? You know?
Okay, all right. We're just gonna choose to do the Vegeta effect. Oh,
Okay.
what? What do you mean?
I'm gonna flip the script here. Okay, you name a villain. Who would you bring back?
You know what? Recently?
Yeah.
Okay. If we're talking about just
Hit me with it.
just recently, I'm gonna go with actually Mahito. I think I like him from Jujutsu Kaisen.
What?
I like him.
Did it about what?
I like him. I think
Killed the best friend.
I know he killed the best friend, but the thing here is
What? I shouldn't have asked this question to Crim.
Okay,
Oh my
okay.
god.
What?
Is
Well-
anyone else at home listening to this and just being like, what the heck? Because I'm what the hecking right now.
okay, but think about it. He's much like if I feel like if you felt the same way about the Justin Bieber arc in Hunter x Hunter, all right, like how is he not the same thing? A curse bred into existence, right? And then doesn't know any better. He's like an overgrown child.
Except he, I think, is inherently very evil and hasn't seen anything good to bring to people either.
Okay, sure. maybe. But I think he's a cool character. I think
Just admit that you think he's cool. That's it.
Yeah, but I think he's a cool character that would be fun to see on the winning team. I don't. The reason, there's no logic. That's what I'm saying. There is no logic behind this other than I would think it'd be cool
just
to see him
just
on
someone
the
who
winning
I think
team.
is cool.
Yeah, because
Okay.
If you want me to justify a good character that I think could come back to the winning team, it's hard to say that in anime because these villains are so messed up 50 ways into you know what I mean? I would probably choose then at that point, if I could choose from any universe, not just anime. I mean, I already had gotten my wish, Magneto.
Okay, one. I think I would choose.
Recent. It doesn't have to be of all time.
Oh man, I think it's easier for me to think of all time because they're like One Piece villains that I think are just super cool. And I guess he's not really a villain. No, okay. I'm starting to question it a little bit again. Dude, this is so hard. This is so hard.
I love how
Why
it's
is this
so
impossible?
easy for me to come up with. Oh wait, I'm surprised you didn't say Zenitsu.
Oh my god. Oh my god, how dare you? Why can't I not think of anybody that I literally I'm literally stuck. I'll think of it by the time we get to our next episode. How's that? Because like I literally need time to think about this. This is like such a philosophically deep question that I have no answer to at the moment. What the heck?
I mean,
I couldn't tell you.
Like, yeah, like one villain that I thought was also like pretty solid, I guess, outside of that was that actually did come back was what's her name in Parasite, Tomura? Do you know the one that the initial first alien parasite that lands?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, and then takes over and then like kind of like has a life here and starts carrying the baby around. Like that was really cool. I thought that was awesome. So that's probably one of my favorite actually redeemed characters, along with, of course, I guess. I mean, if you want to say Vegeta is a very cool character. I do like Vegeta a lot. So, like, I realized as I got older, Dragon Ball is starting to go poo-poo for me. But, like, the one thing that is consistent about my love for Dragon Ball is Vegeta.
I've always been on Team Vegeta. Goku sucks.
Yeah, Goku.
I think we can agree on that.
Yeah, Goku is like the worst character. Like, maybe not the absolute worst, but like, yeah. Okay. Well, you know,
am I just like goody two shoes? Do I just only like good guys? What the heck?
Wow, dude, you're so vanilla, dude.
I know. What the heck?
Wow,
there has to. Dude, honestly, I think Emmett Selk would be on the side that I would want to bring back. I do love Emmett Selk.
I mean, yeah,
but I wanted to think of like an anime, you know, like an anime.
Dude. I mean, like even Fairy Tail gave me a not Jobin. Jobin is from I Love You, Man. Jalalacopter. That dude. I thought that dude was also pretty cool when he came back to the winning side. So, you know.
You know who also is a really cool villain?
Huh.
The dude from Hellsing with the swords. I forgot his name.
Oh, I don't know his name either. Dude, I can barely remember what I had for lunch. I'm not going to remember the anime's name.
But he's dope.
Okay.
So, I liked him as a villain.
All right, then. That's good to know.
God, I suck at this. Holy moly! Why did we?
Dude,
I was so strong this entire episode, and then you just had to hit me in the balls at the end there.
All right, now that he's comfortable, sack tap. You know, it's okay. Maybe the real villainy is how vanilla you are.
Oh! I actually know. Oh my God! How did I forget this?
If you say Inuyasha's brother.
No. Oh my God. There's a character in Monogatari named Kaiki. Kaiki something. I forgot his last name. Deishu. Yeah, Kaiki Deishu. That guy. That guy has to be one of the coolest villains / not villains of all time. So yeah, him.
Okay.
Him. Boom. He's like Emmett Selk before Emmett Selk was a thing. Boom. Not really. I just threw that in there just because. But him, yes, him. Okay, we got it. We nailed it. I can finally end this episode. Jesus Christ. Anyways, for everybody who's listening at home and literally listen to me like avoid the question for like 2 minutes there at the end, I appreciate you. Thank you so much for watching. Like, comment, and subscribe on our YouTube channel, which you can find Niisan Podcast, and we have a Twitter account which you guys should all follow as well. So please follow us at Niisan Podcast.
Yep. Tweet at us.
Other than that, let us know in the comments for which villains that you guys like, and you know, even if you can't think of a villain like me, it took me forever to figure out what villain I wanted to say, but you know, just do it for the engagements, because that's good for the YouTube, you know.
Yeah, I mean, of course, like the engagement's cool too. The real villainy is
if you guys get this far on YouTube. If you get this far on YouTube, just say like, Crim is a villain.
What? How am I the villain? Okay, whatever.
Anyways, thanks so much for watching, guys. We'll see you guys next week. Bye.
Peace.